Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to go live for a few minutes while I enjoy this cigar and a lovely evening tonight. We'll have some updated videos and some content shortly. I've got some reviews in the works right now and some very strong opinions on Sig Sauer that I've developed recently. And it's gonna be a doozy, unfortunately, along with a lot of other folks that Sig is not what it was, which is painful as a Sig fanboy. If you've followed my channel for some time, you are very aware that I'm a huge fanboy and I've owned every single polymer Sig Sauer that you can own. I've also got some Cimarron reviews coming up as well, but I need to get some more stuff together to actually do the reviews. I want to do them. Hey Tristan, how's it going? So that's kind of the big stuff that's in the works right now. It's going to be a hot minute before I get that stuff cranked out, just with the current work schedule. I'm gonna go back out into the woods, film some more out there, and should be a fun time. I've also retooled, and we'll be putting out an updated video on the battle belt philosophy that I put out a little while ago, and some things I've changed and updates that I've made to that belt, and why body armor I think is really a necessity at this point, especially after what we saw on October 7th. And I think it's foolish for people to think that something like that can't happen here, especially if you live in the border region, because we've seen a number of incursions, even on our own soil in recent years. How's everyone doing tonight? So we'll get into that in the near future as well. And then been brainstorming how to put my own spin, and I don't think things are going to get inherently better in Europe, obviously, but more than likely everybody's kind of waiting to see how things shake up for us here in the U.S. Beyond that, just wanted to check in with everybody, say hello. I'm still here, just putting stuff together behind the scenes, because it's quite time consuming, as you can imagine, to film a video and actually get thousands of rounds through something, especially with the current ammunition pricing. It's definitely out of control again. Now it's not the time to be stacking. I've got a video I'll probably crank out on that in the near future as well. What the current situation looks like, especially for 5.56 and 2.23, which is certainly going to get worse with the way things are shaken out. And with so many people joining NATO, that's going to get a lot more uncomfortable for those of us here at home. Pops in or shows up tonight. But yeah, beyond that, not a whole lot going on. Gear-wise, I've got some more chest rigs and stuff to review, and stuff in the works, as I said. It's just a matter of actually getting out there, using it more. Really give you an opinion or a review. I've seen a lot of stuff lately from some very large creators that are doing their review. You look at the product, the holster, whatever they're showing. I saw one channel, I don't remember his name, but he was showing an appendix leather holster, but it had no sweat stains on the leather. And I don't know if you guys have seen that type of stuff where they're just like, oh yeah, this is the go-to. I bought new police trade-ins. Yeah, and the prices are better, especially on the Glock trade-ins. The best value, I would say, I would stick with Glocks. I wouldn't recommend any SIGs right now, and that's what I'm going to get into. I'm probably going to bring a buddy on the channel to talk more about that. He's built AKs, he's bent receivers, he's done all that. Way more knowledgeable than I am, and he's a young kid too. But yeah, I would stick with Glock. The prices again have fallen. The SIGs are out of control as far as the prices go for what you're getting by batch. It's not even that I've had the pleasure of teens issued, and the fit and finish of those seems to be better than the commercial M18s and M17s that are floating around. And I don't know what's going on, what the real differences between the two, and there seems to be some small changes that SIG keeps making to certain pieces on the firearms, and they're just not forward and telling us exactly what they're doing. But in or something will come in, you're like, well, why is this pin different, or why, they're doing stuff again. And I found some of the tolerance issues and I mentioned this a while ago, between, it was a SIG factory slide that I bought, milled and cut for a red dot, and it wouldn't fit a factory profile buddy what they were doing. But I eventually got that resolved by getting a different barrel, and it worked. But as far as my experience with police trade-ins, I've got a M&P and I've got a Glock police trade-in. Both are great guns. Really, both just had holster wear. That was about it. I'm sure that they had a pretty high round count by the time I got them, depending on how they were used, if they were used in an academy environment, or if the previous owner of those pistols within the agency ran a lot of classes or was on any teams or anything. Then those guns were likely heavily abused. But they have department armors, so they would have switched stuff up if and when needed. Police shock. Those get beat real bad, so I wouldn't advise it. Thank you, likewise, George. Appreciate it. Like I said, I'm still here. I just haven't gotten around to posting a lot lately, and get a new laptop soon, so that's been another hang up. I've just been editing most stuff with my iPhone, which is very taxing, but it can be done. You can run a whole YouTube channel off of an iPhone. Yeah, just really wanted to take advantage of this weather before it gets too unbearable. How were those 870s that you received, George? Was the finish a little worn from the gun rack in the patrol car, or pretty clean? Were they agency marked? I know there were some floating around a couple years ago from, I want to say, like Ohio State Patrol 870s or something, that were fairly clean and had their logo on it. It's pretty neat. But the other thing I want to hit on too, and if you guys watch, what's his channel, like Vintage Firearms, he made a really good rant video the other day about the value of how everything is just hog wild right now. We all know that, but it's going to return a little more to normal, like normal levels, where the interest is there in surplus firearms, but people are beginning to not see the value in spending $700-800 on a rifle that fires an obscure caliber. And the only people interested in buying them again are actual collectors, versus people who in the 2016 and 2020 timeframe, they were just buying anything that could fire a projectile, which is what made them incredibly scarce, at least temporarily. But we're beginning to see that stuff kind of flood back onto the market. I'd say the big thing that I noticed, and that it really bothers me, and I commented on his video about it, was just the fact that so many gun shops have just thrown relic firearms from their lineup, because they have realized that people are not going to pay top dollar for these old guns. Most of them are in anemic or obsolete calibers, and if they come in, they try to buy as cheap as possible, and then they just throw them on GunBroker. So even your old mom and pop shops that used to have a rack or two of Cure and Relic stuff, they discontinued carrying that in store. It's really sad. Yeah, what's going on legally, and aren't they trying to, what did they do in Illinois? I saw they passed something. I haven't been paying attention to much of the state level stuff like I used to. Oh, thank you, George. I appreciate that. The 300 meter Minuteman AR video. Yeah, I think, realistically, most stuff we're going to be dealing with is in 15 to 25 feet probably, but with the weirdness for sure, especially anyone who's in Europe and is able to access the stuff we can get here, hopefully that can be a decent guide for those individuals over there to get something set up. And no, I'm not in Illinois. Far from it. I'm guessing Tristan might be, though. Oh, complete AR and AK ban. Did it already pass? That's not going to hold. Well, that's the thing. We know that that type of legislation will not hold up because of the court rulings regarding common use. So, unfortunately, and this is what they like to do, is they like to play this game because they get to use our taxpayer money to oppress us. And then we have to fight it with what's left over from our paycheck after they tax us to then fight the legislation they passed, knowing full well what they just did was completely unlawful. But at the end of the day, they don't even really need to gain that much compliance from anyone. They just need to make people afraid enough to not bring those type of things to the range again for a while. I bet the next time you go to the range, if you're in Illinois, well, let's see how many people have the cojones to bring an AR and AK in a situation where they're banned. I have a feeling a lot of people won't, because they're afraid somebody's going to make that call, and then you just have compliance because people are scared. Even though, again, the law is completely illegal. You know, this is not legal advice. None of this is legal advice. You know, contact a lawyer if you're up there and in that situation, where much of your collection's now illegal. But ultimately, I think a lot of this stuff's going to get stricken. But it'll take probably another 5 or 10 years before we see the AWBs repealed pretty much nationwide. But it will happen with time, because the precedent has already been set. Now, as far as full NFA repeal, I think that younger generations, to some degree, are a lot more receptive to that type of stuff, because they have been exposed to firearm culture at a much earlier age than their parents, you know, who maybe grew up in a house with like a shotgun and a pistol. But I don't know if you guys saw that recent poll that suggested that 55% of Americans now live in a house with at least one firearm. So that's a lot higher than we originally were told, when it was like, you know, maybe a third of Americans owned a gun. Joe, what's up, my man? Good to see you. As a Missourian, I will make, yeah. Yeah, it was funny. I had a question from a Canadian when they started running into all their magazine bans and stuff up there, and yeah, it's a real laugh up there even, and they of course ran out, and I made a video about it too. But the Canadians ran out, and as you all know, probably they bought every single handgun that was available on the Canadian market when there was mention of a handgun ban in Canada. And they're trying to ram through some more legislation up there. I loosely follow Canadian gun laws because it's a lot of the same stuff they want to enact here ultimately, and they use all the same talking points. They use all the same talking points everywhere. It's really quite interesting, and it shows the brilliance of the founding fathers when they sat there and said, you know what, we just fought against a tyrannical government who attempted to confiscate firearms. So here's what we're going to do: Amendment 2. We're going to make an Amendment 2, the right to keep and bear arms. Fighting a cold too, and smoking a cigar. Probably not the best combo, but it's helping my headache. So, is there anything that you guys are wanting to see from my channel going forward? Like I said, I got those reviews that I'm working on. I've got some bits of them filmed, at least the initial impressions, and then I want to get those round counts a bit higher, especially with the Chiappa stuff. But 45 LC is not cheap. It's fun. They're great pistols. And the Cimarron stuff, great stuff. I don't know if you've been following all the craziness in New York and Chicago. They've been blocking roads again tonight. So right on time for the election season too. I'm also very active on X, aka Twitter. So that's definitely, I think, going to be the way forward for a lot of the content you like to see here on YouTube. Just because, unfortunately, as big as this platform is, it's become very crowded. We're seeing a lot of older channels get hammered. Do I like the Glock 21? I don't know that I've ever shot a Glock 21, come to think of it. Plenty of range time. I've got thousands and thousands of rounds through Glock 22s. But yeah, none on the 21, because I worked for some entities that for some reason were still fixated on 40, and you'll still see 40 floating around. The government still, for some reason, they love 40. Although a lot of agencies, though, they've gone back to 9 mil. They've seen some sanity. They've seen a light that is 9 mil. I was actually about to post a meme too about, it was an older meme about Glock, how people just keep lining up to buy, the lack of innovation every year with Glock. But at the end of the day, I was real close to buying a Glock not long ago. A 17. I was gonna get a blue label one, but they didn't have one with an RMR cut. And then I looked at it. I was like, no, I'll get an M17. I'll just get an M17. And I didn't trust my gut on the latest with SIG, which is why, like I said earlier in this live, I have some very strong opinions now that I didn't used to have about Sig Sauer. A few weeks ago, we had talked about what you should get for a concealed carry gun. I would have pointed you in the direction of a SIG, but in good conscience, I couldn't do that anymore. And then for a duty gun, I'd probably just say get a Glock, or I'm probably going to become I can't just be a Glock guy. That's boring, right? So I'll probably become like a Walther or an H&K guy, I think, next. Walthers are a little more attainable depending on the gun than an H&K, but they're not obscenely out of my price range if you hunt around a little bit. So you'll probably see some more H&Ks and Walthers in the next couple of years. There's really nothing to add to the Glock review world video, unfortunately. They're great. They're good guns. They're solid. What I was looking at, though, was recently one of Anderson Manufacturing's, their Glock copy. That looked real interesting to me for at least a little bit. And I almost bought one of their frames on Black Friday because I think they were like 75 bucks. And they had some type of special where you got the frame and an Anderson lower. I was like, can never have too many strip lowers. So I was debating just building a weird little hybrid of Glock parts and Anderson parts and some Palmetto parts too. The Secret Service still uses a 226. No, I think they're all using Glocks now. Pretty sure they're all using Glocks. Do some poking around into that, but yeah. No, I have some friends who work up that direction, so. But I think they're using Glocks. B30L with compensator and tritium sights. Yeah. Well, what was the P30, the SK? I was looking at that. I think it was the P30 SK HK. It was like a double action, single action setup. I was looking at that a while back, like a really long time ago. It was very tempting, but I went to the way of the SIG. I know the VA cops are still running 229s, the double action Kellerman ones. I think they still have some Beretta M9s too. So those are still floating around too. And their 229s, I mean, these guns are old. They have incredible round counts, but this is, again, when SIG was still great. And I still have my SP 2022 that I was running in my civil defense belt video. And it just shoots great still. I've had that pistol since 2012 probably. Not even sure how many thousands and thousands of rounds I have through that pistol, but it just rocks. And it was, and has remained the ugly stepchild of the SIG world that everybody forgets about. Unless you're a member of the French National Police, because they still carry them. And there's no way they're replacing them with P320s at this point, unless they got an inside SIG rep who's going to make that. I'll see that coming to fruition for them. Not with all the negative press that they're getting lately, and it's well warranted. All right, well, I'll give you a little lowdown on my 17, the M17. I haven't fired it yet, and got plenty of ones for the M18, but took my M17. Had my buddy I mentioned, a younger guy, who's going to come on as a real gun guy. I had him help me install a red dot that I'll be doing a review of as well. And we were playing with it in a Safariland holster, and I'm waiting to hear back from Safariland about some tolerance and fitment issues that the pistol seems to have in Safariland's holster, which is so strange. I've used Safariland for years. They're tanks, as I've said before. If you need a work or duty holster or a holster for open carry purposes, just get a Safariland. Don't second guess what I'm saying. Just get a Safariland. There's a reason why everybody uses them around the world. They're beasts. But, with SIG's fit and finish, with their current coating that they're using on the commercial M17s, drawing it in and out of that Safariland holster, I already have holster wear. And that was only pulling it in and out of the holster maybe 20 or 30 times. And I was having some fitment issues with it as well, which was requiring me to rock the pistol out of the holster. Now, a while ago, there was an officer who had an issue that was caught on video in their little meeting room, or the entryway to their department. There were like 10 of them standing around, and everyone was trying to blame SIG, and they were trying to blame Safariland, and Safariland blamed SIG, and SIG blamed Safariland, and it honestly could be both of them based on my experience the other night. I'm sorry to hear back. Yeah, that's never easy, losing a parent. Doesn't matter how old you are, how old they are. Well, if y'all don't have any for me before I decide to close this thing down, I'll give y'all a minute to chime in if there's anything you guys want to chat about real quick, or like I said, if there's any videos or anything that you want to see, well, please drop a comment on this video and let me know so I can add it to the project list. What holsters do officers use? Generally, most police officers in the United States are using Safariland holsters, usually level 3s. There are alternatives. Blacks has a duty line as well. I've seen those out there, but most it's generally going to be Safariland. That's pretty much the gold standard across the board. Oh, don't, Joe, if you're gonna get hosed, don't do it off cheap booze. That makes the whole experience much more depressing. Get a scotch. Was the one that someone introduced me to the other day, Achentosen. That one before, just hadn't noticed the. It's not crazy expensive per bottle. There's no burn. It's very smooth. And then Slinger's Blue Line was good. I had a bottle that I kept in a decanter, and it was, just have a nightcap occasionally. It was great. But yeah, my condolences. Hope you find some peace with that, because yeah, that's never easy. And I always miss them, obviously. That never goes away, but it'll get easier for sure. Guys, thanks for tuning in tonight. I'm gonna go about the rest of my evening, and hope you all have a good one. Joe, take care of yourself. Tristan, thanks for tuning in as well. Y'all have a good night.